There is one stock that is about to skyrocket. It is connected to a $2 billion Bill Gates funded nuclear energy company. And after NVIDIA talked about quantum at their technology conference today in Washington, D.C., NVIDIA is up significantly. NVIDIA also has a venture arm that is invested in this Bill Gates company. And this little known uranium company, the ticker is ASPI, has not run up yet. I think it's gonna go up. I think the connections to Gates and NVIDIA are very powerful. And I think now is the time for uranium to be investable before it goes up. This is not financial advice. Let's jump in.
This is Sam Putnam.
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 So, this is today's conference, this technology event. And Jensen, Trump was not there. Jensen was joking about how Trump asked him to be in another continent. But the reason it was supposed to be in DC was to be with Trump. But you know what? Still was a pretty big deal for NVIDIA. Let's look at NVIDIA stock today. Broke through 200. Was that predictable? Hard to say. I think there was definitely excitement about this conference, and that was predictable, but we didn't know exactly what he was going to say. So, kind of like an earnings event, you don't exactly know how it's going to go. But he did talk about collaborating with over a dozen quantum companies. Interestingly, he did mention IONQ, but if we look at the IONQ share price, actually sold off. So wasn't good for IONQ. Now, the company I'm talking about is ASPI. They provide the uranium for nuclear energy companies like this Bill Gates company I mentioned. And essentially what Jensen was talking about is NVIDIA is committed to enabling quantum. And now the question just becomes, what's the timeline for this? And what companies are going to benefit? So this was the big news from the technology conference. While we're talking about it, they're going to build AI supercomputers for the U.S. Energy Department. And, $500 billion is a big number. But if we look down at this Bill Gates company, it's privately traded. It's about a $2 billion funded company, and it's supported by NVIDIA's venture arm. So we can kind of connect the dots here and say there's going to have to be nuclear power to allow NVIDIA to make all of these advancements to provide the energy. They're not going to get it from current power opportunities, so they need uranium in order to supply that. ASPI is the company that's going to be used to do that. And if we look into what that company does, well, here we go. This is the Bill Gates company, TerraPower. They're private. And here is ASPI. They have a 10-year agreement with TerraPower. They do this quantum enrichment technology, production of high purity isotopes, blah, blah, blah. You need uranium in order to have nuclear. You need nuclear in order to have enough power to satisfy all this demand. And if there isn't enough power to satisfy the demand from the LLM companies like OpenAI also recently just struck a deal, made their deal more clear with Microsoft that it's 29% of OpenAI is what Microsoft now owns. And all of this is centered on the juggernaut, the behemoth, NVIDIA. Okay, I'm going to stop using these words, but if NVIDIA can't get enough power, they can't use all their GPUs. They are very power hungry, even with the power efficiency technology. So all this hinges on power, which hinges on uranium. And there's one company, ASPI, which is this enriched uranium company that's used for quantum as well, which Jensen talked about today. And this is where it's at on the chart. So that's what an investor needs to know. And if you look at uranium, this thing has already run 200, 300%, right? LEU, this thing has already run 100% plus. And so now you have to ask, what is still investable? Well, what's investable is a company that hasn't gone up yet. And on a 5-year chart, this thing has gone up a fair amount. I mean, it's a penny stock. Of course, it's gone up a lot. But now we're getting to a point where it's above this level from about exactly a year ago. And there's plenty of volume here. This is not the prettiest, right? It's gone sideways while the market's gone up. But if it does break out of this range and you see this volume has been pretty heavy, this is going to get pretty interesting. It's only a $10 stock. There is earnings in mid-November. NVIDIA earnings as well are going to matter, okay? Not just for this stock, but for the whole market. So NVIDIA earnings are right after that ASPI earnings. So this is the next uranium stock to move, in my opinion. I don't know exactly that, this is a basic picture of what's going on here, but who exactly knows, right, how important this piece is, the quantum computing piece, right? If it's extremely important, ASPI is going to go up a lot. If it turns out to be a 15-year down the road science project, the stock is not going to go up that much. It just is what it is. But the important part is we know right now it's extremely topical because it was talked about at this conference. This conference was a big deal. I mean, you can see that from the NVIDIA stock price move. It's massive. And if ASPI does not end up being that important, well, no harm, no foul. I mean, it's basically gone sideways. It's just going to keep going sideways, most likely. Now, we can talk about risk factors because that's always important to keep in mind. And this is the dilution that tells that story. It's a $1 billion company. It's somewhat worth looking at. It's not a tiny, tiny startup, but they do not have much cash, okay? And they could offer as well. So this number of shares, it's about 180 million, whatever it is, could increase. And if we look down, the benefit of investing now is we can see they raised about 3 months ago in July, and then they raised some more money just about a week ago. So they're unlikely to raise very soon. This is a lot of money, $210 million at $14, October 15th. So they raised up here. It's above their share price right now. It looks like actually some of those shares might have, when they raised that money, it looks like some shares were definitely dumped. Okay, so that's kind of the risk factor you have to be careful with these little companies. But the benefit is, they're unlikely to raise a lot more given they just did in the near future. So you have a little bit of a space to buy it without worrying about overhead supply, new shares entering the market. They can't raise using this current shelf offering statement. S3. And as far as the actual cash on hand, they can just sell shares into the open market. So that's what may have happened just recently. So you do have to be careful of that as well, because they can just increase the float that way. But if there's enough interest, if NVIDIA is strong, and particularly if these quantum companies show a little bit of life, obviously there wasn't much movement right now, I think this uranium company is going to move. And it might not even be the quantum companies, it might be the more established uranium companies, LEU and UUUU. DNN is another one if they have good earnings. And their earnings are before ASBI. So that's another factor you can use if you go over to UUUU. That earnings is also before. So you get a sense of how these companies are doing, how the sector is going before ASBI's earnings. So a lot to look at there, but I do think it's a super favorable opportunity that hasn't been talked about much right now. And if you like these ideas, hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe. And if you want to make $1,000 in stocks in the next 90 days or your money back, and you're serious about this, click that join button or head over to stockscommunity.com to join the Discord and take advantage of that guarantee. See you in the next one.
This is Sam Putnam.
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 This is Sam Putnam.